Welcome everybody, welcome back, appreciate the support. Today we're going to be doing, believe it or not, episode number 17. I don't have any crazy quarantine updates, but we're going to go ahead and jump right into the show. If you are catching us on YouTube, you can always join us live if you want to be a part of the conversation, Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Central Time. If you use the link in the description, you can join right in. The ID never changes. And with that, we're going to get into today's episode. And today, we are going to call the episode, No Water, No Problem. And today we're going to break it down into 3 different categories here. Number 1 is going to be kind of the issues with the current heated wells that we have, and then running a standard heated well dry, and then also how the dry well works to solve some of these problems. So starting out, obviously, if the well is being placed in the back of the house application, you don't tend to run into some of these problems quite as much. However, if you do have it in the front of the house, and let's just assume eventually we will have lovely buffets again and self-serve options. When these are in the front of the house, sometimes operators have an issue with bringing water. If it's not a plumb line with an autofill system, you're going to have to figure out a way to fill those wells every single day. And that means perhaps a 5-gallon bucket. Sometimes you're going to be bringing out steam pans filled with water, and you'll have to make several trips depending upon how many wells you have. And on top of that, what does that look like during a lunch rush? If you happen to plan your day poorly and all of a sudden you get busy and now you've got to have somebody out there filling up the wells while people are trying to get food, it ends up becoming a bit of an issue. Along with that, if, for example, the wells were to run dry, you maybe can't rely on your employees all the time to make sure that the timing is down in a structure. Or perhaps one day it's running hotter and maybe less water was put in and those wells do get dry. Now you don't have the added benefits of utilizing the water in them. The other thing we can talk about is different remodels. If I have an existing location that wants to put a heated well in and they don't have the ability to run water to it, or another big problem is the drain. Trenching out a drain can be extremely expensive in an already existing restaurant or business. Whatever it happens to be. And that can be extremely, extremely expensive. And what happens when that runs dry? A lot of people will say, well, Ryan, Hatco wells can run dry. And that would be true, but let's talk about it a little bit here. As that well runs dry, or let's say you never put water in it to begin with, you're no longer utilizing the boiling of that water and creating the steam, which envelops the pan underneath, giving you amazing transfer of energy. Actually, what they say is steam contains more energy than air, which most of us probably knew, but it especially contains more available energy due to the additional energy stored during from the phase change itself. So you also get a more consistent temperature when you're utilizing the steam. So what happens when it runs dry? Well, we have our standard Kelrod elements underneath, and because you're now heating those elements, which essentially heat the bottom of the base, and then it heats the air that's underneath of that pan, you're now radiating heat up to the bottom of the pan. And it does a good job with the exception of the consistency and where that heat is being hit. And what we find is the bottom of the pan tends to get hotter than the sides of the pan, which leads to some scorching issues. How do we counteract that? Well, if somebody's over there stirring all the time, it's probably not an issue. But for food that's going to be set for a longer period of time, you will notice scorching and issues on the bottom of the pan. So we do say that it's available to run dry. You're not going to hurt the unit, but your efficiency goes down. And then also the product has to be stirred all the time. So you can get away with some of those things. The air is naturally going to rise up and heat that pan, but it's really not going to envelop it. So what's happening now is obviously less efficiency, less consistency. So let's move into what our options are. We do have a dry well option. And with this dry well option, you actually have, as you can see in the picture here, a heating element that surrounds the fan. And with the inclusion of some baffles, which you'll see in the next picture, we're then creating convected air that's moving around not only the bottom of the pan, but also the sides of the pan. And what that's going to do is give us back that consistency. So now we're not going to have to stir the pans as much, and you're going to get much better performance out of it. And then the other thing that you're going to do is obviously you're going to lose the water. You're going to lose that coming up to the store and having to carry buckets up to it. You don't have to have any plumbing costs. So when you look at the cost of a dry well, it tends to be a little bit more expensive. But what you can see is you are going to eliminate your plumbing expenses, any of your drain expenses. So they do tend to weigh each other out. But if you look at piece of equipment versus piece of equipment, the dry well is going to be a little bit more expensive. Here you can see it's very easy to service. The top baffles come completely out, so you have access to the heating elements itself as well as the fan. And then some people say, well, what happens when food gets down there? We've taken that into account, and we've actually put a large drain in there. So if somebody were to, excuse me, pour food in there, or perhaps when pans are being changed, food happens to fall in there, it can be cleaned out rather easily, and any excess liquids can go through the bottom of it. Now, I would not plug the drain and fill it with water. The water should be able to flow through if somebody were to add it. It's not meant to be completely submerged at all times, but there are some safeguards built in for you. So with this system, it now is extremely effective and consistent for even temperatures rather than radiating the heat in that transfer of temperature. So right there, you're going to be able to save a ton of money. Looking at the 1 through 6 ganged well combination, we also have a 1 through 4 slim pan configuration. Great part is these look exactly like our existing units. So if you do need to pair them in the field, they will look exactly the same from the outside. You have that nice aesthetically pleasing feel to them. But in the end, no water, no problem. We've got solutions for you. And with that, that's going to wrap up today's talk. I'm going to stop sharing as usual, and we can go into the chat here. If you do have any questions about our heated well or dry well, feel free to open up the chat window at the bottom, and you can go ahead and add any of the questions that you have here today. And I haven't seen anything crazy going on in chat yet. There we go, Joe, excellent. Do you have a total cost of ownership over whatever amount of years on a wet dry well versus a dry well? Lou sent you that. I don't know if we've actually taken the time to figure out what the cost of ownership is. What I have seen in our research is that oftentimes you'll offset the initial cost to a standard heated well by eliminating the plumbing costs, especially if you have a floor drain. Ryan Dobson, slimline, yes. We do offer a slimline, so if you do have limited space, or perhaps you don't want to have somebody reaching as far back, the slimline is available, and that's available in a 1 through 4 configuration. Dan Frigo, sure, in the price list. John McCurdy, Ryan, what would happen to the fan motor if a lot, I'm gonna assume that's lot of water was spilt into the pan? So with the drain, hopefully that water goes right through. I don't know if we've done any testing to actually plug that and see how long that can be submerged. Now you have to understand is on the bottom where the fan is, we have fitted that, so there's fittings around. So only the fan is exposed. The motor itself is not exposed. Now, like I said, I don't know if we've actually plugged it and filled it with water and allowed that to sit for a certain period of time. But what I can tell you is that it was designed so that if water was going in to clean it or water was poured in unintentionally, it will drain out the bottom and it will not get to the motor itself. The energy efficiency increases to the dry well over our HWPI run dry by a good amount. Yes, that's one of the things I mentioned. Obviously, when you talk about your efficiencies, if I just have a heated element that's then heating the air, radiating up, I have to put a lot more energy to get the same heat versus a heating element with a fan moving that air around. So you have a ton of efficiencies when it comes to the dry well itself. Sealed bearing, yes, we already have that. And we do have, well, yes, we have tested with a number 5 can of baked beans when they poured them in there. And although it created a giant mess, it did not damage the unit. But like I said, I don't believe we've done a test where we plugged it and filled it like an aquarium and allowed it to sit for an extended period of time. Which model do you see most in the field? It's a difficult question because it all depends on the number of pans that's needed. Depends on the setup. So most of the time if people are putting wells in, I would say probably 3 to 4. 6 takes up a lot of real estate. So my guess would be somewhere in the middle, you're gonna see the most of the units being sold. Singles are probably not as prevalent. Let's see here. Is this motor sealed just in case a customer does plug it and fill it? Yes. So Julie, the motor is sealed. It does have a sealed bearing. Hopefully they don't fill it like an aquarium. That's not how it was intended to be used. Again, the drain is there for cleaning and unintentional product going inside. Any issues with the motor? No, we have not seen any issues with the motor. I know me personally, and I know all the other regionals can speak to their own territories. We have a large school system that has been using them, and that's the closest one I've been interacting with, and we have not seen any issues with the motor at all. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again and get to everybody's favorite part, and that is going to be the memes for today. First one, actually I believe the first two were sent in by Charlene, and I don't know where she found the picture, but she actually has a picture of me taking delivery of my pickup truck on Saturday, and as you can see, I'm rich in toilet paper. Following up, after being in lockdown so long, the animals have started to check in on us. Thought that was a pretty clever one. And then the last one came in from Travis, and it's one of my personal favorites. It actually, I laughed out loud when I saw this one. For everyone saying that America will never reopen, just remember, Jurassic Park reopened 5 times after people were eaten alive. 5 times. So we're in good hands. And with that, we're going to wrap up today's episode. So again, I really appreciate everybody in attendance here today. I appreciate the support. If you are listening on YouTube, you can catch us live 3 p.m. Central Time, Monday through Friday. You can hit the bell notification down here that'll let you know every time that we post new videos. And if you are enjoying the content, please let us know by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Thanks, everybody, and have a nice day.